You know, like that was their only gig at the time, was to make sure that he was safe and that they were responsible for him. You know, I don't know if you have kids. I've got kids, and you're
Yeah,
responsible for them.
I have one.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got to. Your job is to protect them, and this adult's job, and I believe it was Harvard, was to protect this child. And what they subjected him to created one of the prolific mass murderers of our time, a genius with no question about it. And I don't agree with his methods, but just about everything that he said was going to happen has kind of been happening. And
Oh, for sure.
so, but if he'd chosen a path of love rather than a path of extreme violence, if he'd have chosen to have a smile rather than to hurt people, we might be living in a very, very different world.
For sure. I like to look at it like, and plus, of course, because, you know, I'm a human being, so I want to make myself the center of of every story. But I like to look at things like this, like every person can make a difference. So I always look at it like, if I was there, I could have changed it. And but meaning by that, but replace me with somebody else, though, you know, like one person could have just interacted with him and be like, man, fuck that bullshit, whatever, and get them on. But if we don't get that, like, uh good like surrounding cast, you know what I mean, if you have
Yeah.
no one else to turn to and your surrounding cast is kind of like kind of writes you off, I think it's tough. I think, and on top of, like you said, getting like brainwashed as like a kid, like I think that like kind of is rough to get through. But yeah, he was super intelligent, man. Like I think even more, I think, yeah, he would have been up with like the Apples and the Teslas of like, well, to me, like Tesla's overrated. He's not super intelligent. He just has a lot of money. He is intelligent and he makes smart decisions, because even people think he invented the Tesla car. I'm like, no, he didn't. He bought that. You know what I mean?
He
He bought
hired
that from two
really
brothers
smart
and like they
people.
were struggling.
Smart people
Yeah, which
hire
is a good,
smart
which is
people.
a great skill.
Yeah, that is a fucking talent. By the way, what are you smoking, my friend?
Oh man, I think this one was I forgot, man, because I got mixed up. You had to, I just helped to give you one of this and one of that. I got but it's some like indica mix hybrid.
Nice, nice.
Then I even brought out the let me see if I got the brought out the little cup. I was like, let's have a little celebrate that 1776.
Holy shit! Enjoy your freedom, my friend. Enjoy your freedom. Um, yeah, Ted Kaczynski's an interesting cat, man. He's an interesting cat with some very interesting ideas and some things where you know, like a lot of the predictions that he made have come to fruition. But I think that if you're any kind of like real technocrat, then you saw a lot of the writing on the wall for some of the stuff back in 1991, 1992. You look at movies like The Lawnmower Man, which are using concepts like virtual reality learning to make people super duper smart in a very short amount of time. What happens when they jack themselves into the Matrix? Well, that's what happens when they jack themselves into the Matrix. And you look at movies like that as sort of a precursor to what we're seeing now. What is going to be, you know, the next step of that Oculus Rift? What is going to be that singularity where you're, you know, your physical body is dead, but your consciousness lives on in an avatar in a series of X and O's, and it all works out until the power grid goes off.
You're right with the precursors, because I think they have like and everything. Like now that you said like the early 90s, it made me think a little bit. I'm like, yeah, Demolition Man, you know, you got Judge Dredd, like all that kind of stuff. And those are just the mainstream ones, like not to mention flicks like Dark City, you know what I mean? That kind of really flipped everything upside down. When I saw that in the theaters as a kid, I walked out because I was like 13 or maybe 12, 13. It was around, I know it was around the time Titanic came out. And
Yeah.
I was like, fuck this movie, but I didn't get it. You know what I mean? It was just too much. And I went and snuck into a different movie. But then I saw it like when I was older and I was like, oh man, this shit's a fucking total trip. And it's kind of a lot. And once you start looking for like a message, like you see it in everything, you start, oh, okay, like I see why they're pushing this narrative of wanting you to think this way about a certain person. And why do you want me to think this way about this person? Because you're right, we need to analyze everything. People say like, oh, someone did something bad, so they have all bad ideas. That's not true. Maybe they snapped, whatever the reason be, because every person's different in their circumstances, but they could have still said some prolific shit, some things that might be some substance. You know what I mean? Something that needs to be evaluated, but they push it down because they're like, oh, he was a terrorist, or you know what I mean? That he's this, he's that, but they miss the message and they don't tell the full story on people, I think, and they give you what they want to give you of them. Either praise them as a hero and wipe away their bads, or paint them as a villain and wipe away all their good.
And we see that throughout time, whether it's a football player who decides to make a political statement for one reason or another, that, by the way, they as Americans are 100% allowed to make. You know, we tend to wipe away. If you are a fan of what this athlete did or what this athlete said, then no matter what they did, they're great. And if you're not a fan of what this athlete said or did, well, then I mean, I loved them when they were on my team, but I wish our athletes didn't have political opinions and thoughts and opinions like everyone else. Whether or not you know, you want to get into any of the conspiracy theories about why athletes have taken political stances that they've taken. The fact of the matter is they're still Americans. They're still people. They still have rights and freedoms and privileges to say whatever the fuck it is that they want to say. And you have a freedom to say crazy shit, whether or not it's on the internet.
For sure. And they not only have that right, but like everybody's pushing an agenda to say, like, I know we all say like you said, conspiratorial, like of course we could look that way on anything, but for sure, like everybody has an agenda. We got to know that, whether it's a good agenda or it's agenda for all the people, whether it's a personal agenda, you know what I mean? You have these ideologies that we're wrapped in. So all of us, and to say like a basketball player, his or isn't his message is invalid or his opinion is invalid, or a construction worker, that's just kind of to me saying like any common person, your job is not important enough. Same thing with all the discussions about like what's going on right now, is people are like, oh, you don't have the knowledge to know that. I'm like, well, they're like, would you hear that on YouTube? I'm like, well, yeah. Well, did you know that classes have been online for like fucking 5 years?
Yeah.
Like people have been learning online, so you're mocking people for learning something from a YouTube channel, and you're insinuating that they have no intelligence whatsoever. But I'm like, that's how people have been learning for like 10 years already, man. Like, what are you talking about? People actually use it as a tool to like figure out how to do stuff.
Even better, that's being told to you by someone who's $100,000 in debt for a college education they don't use on a daily basis. So the people that are trying to tell you that your methods of learning are ignorant or they're stupid, fuck them. All right. Generally speaking, those are people that aren't trying to learn anything because they're sitting where they're at, because maybe they're boring. Maybe they don't have any goals. Maybe they don't have any ideas of their own. And so you can only be told an idea and understand it if it's being told to you by someone who's being paid by advertisers to tell you that sort of thing. So, like, I don't know what your background is before you started doing podcasts, but for myself, I was a broadcaster. I did radio. And so I got to see some of the things, and I got to really understand why things were done. And part of the reason, like when you watch news, I mean, you watch someone like, whether it's Rachel Maddow, whether it's Sean Hannity, whoever the angry person is that's yelling at you in 12-minute increments, they're yelling in 12-minute increments because they're consistently upselling you. In the first commercial break, they're selling you like a Kia or like a shitty Ford, and then they're selling you a shitty chain restaurant, and then they're selling you like a heart medication. And then as the clock builds and you get closer to like the 45-minute break, that's when you start seeing that's the nice car. That's like the Mercedes or the Lexus or the jacked up Ford SUV. Then you have like the nicer chain restaurant. And now you have the boner pills. But in the interim, they've sold you like another mid-range vehicle. They've sold you more shitty food, and they've sold you another medication that you're going to need because the heart medication that they sold you in the 15-minute block is causing you some other fucking memory loss. Now you got memory loss and you got no erection, and now you need the boner pill and the BMW in the 45-minute block. And you've got to get to that restaurant with the $60 steak. You got to go to the chain restaurant with the $60 steak in your fucking BMW or your Mercedes or your fucking whatever it is that you're driving there, and you got to take the boner pill because that's the only way you can eat and drive like that. You got to fuck like a rock star too.
I would agree with that. That's kind of like what the whole reason kind of I started the podcast. I've been doing music since I was 16, but I mean, I also work like regular ass jobs too. You know what I mean? Like going back and forth, talking to different, like you meet execs, you meet A&Rs, and I can kind of relate on a different level, but you see a lot of the fakeness, and you see a lot of the, not just fakeness, because that's too played out, like orchestrated. That's a better word. It's orchestrated for you to feel a certain way. And the same thing with music. Like you'll see people like just push ideas that they want, and they want you to be a certain way. They want you to look a certain way. And then you'll see even other artists like this. I've always been annoyed by it, but like, they like take pictures, like say you do a show, right? Like people, so it's just tricking people. So say you're going to do a show with Snoop Dogg. People are like, hey, you're going to do a show with Snoop Dogg. People aren't realizing that that person is selling tickets. They don't know Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg didn't say like, but they let them think like, oh yeah, he picked me out of everybody that raps. He picked me. And you're like, oh man, you know what I mean? And you just see the fakeness of it, and you'll see them like post pictures with them, and people are like, dang, you know Snoop Dogg. Like, man, anybody can take a picture with a celebrity, man. And that kind of annoys me, but I guess it's because I'm not like, I hate idolizing people. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it, man. I just don't, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't idolize anybody. I respect people. I see people that, and I can respect, like, dang, that's work ethics, how you've got there. Like, I respect it, but I don't idolize it. I don't like, I don't know. I don't bask in it. And I just think people do that too much. And that's what it is in music. That's what a bunch of, like, we call it circle jerks, you know, even like the local scenes where they're just like, oh yeah, you're good. You're good too, bro. Oh yeah. Oh, like, dude, there's no criticism, no trying to better each other and become a better artist. But instead of just like patting each other on the back and telling you good day, man, like, you know, we did it. It's not like, and I'm not saying that I'm somebody that's above anybody, like, but I think I know Anana and I'm knowledgeable enough. Like, I didn't take certain routes because I was like, and plus I was kind of fucked up too, you know. I would get drunk and stuff. And you know, when you're young and 20 and people are like, yeah, let's just do music. You're like, let's just do music. Get fair. Like, you know what I mean? Like now it's more of a, like, I guess I would have wished I looked at it as a business, but the business side always disturbed me because of that idolization and this fake, like, orchestrated world that everything had to be a certain fit. You had to have a look. I'm like, man, I'm just me, man. I don't know what you mean, man. I don't know what that means. I don't know who else to be. I can't be this thing. I'm going to talk shit. I'm going to say things that you don't like. And you know what I mean? I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to dress a certain way, but like, it's just, that's how I could a little bit relate to that scenario.
And I get it. I did music as well when I was younger in Germany, and I saw it at that same level where nobody can really give criticism. And when I say criticism, people have an inability to give feedback, right? Because especially in a smaller environment, because people don't necessarily know what to do to be better. Otherwise, they'd be doing it. I mean, in Alaska now, this has been a migratory place. So like you have musically, you've got guys like Raw Beats, who was down in the lower 48s doing tracks for dudes like the Youngbloods, but now he's back up here. You have folks from down south who have come up here, and then other folks who've just brought talent up to kind of help show us the ropes musically, just because we're very secluded. But going back to what you say about positive and negative feedback, people just don't know, a lot of it don't know how to give criticism. But on that level of the major labels, you always have someone in the artist's ear saying, you should do this, you should do this, you should wear this. Not necessarily this is why you should wear this, but if they're telling you why you should wear it and you're wearing it as an artist, I mean, a t-shirt's a t-shirt maybe, but at the same time, but why was that t-shirt chosen? Why are these particular colorways chosen? Why are these particular brands favored? And then you start looking into, well, what do these different color combinations mean? Yeah, I don't know. People have a hard time accepting criticism and feedback, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Oh, they really do, man. Trust me. Cause like, I tell people, like, people ask me, they go, what do you think? Like, cause I could take criticism. Like, dude, of course, when someone criticizes me at first, I'm like, fuck that person. Like, you know, you're all pissed off, but then you kind of think about it and you're like, were they right? was the criticism right? And you're like, yeah, it was. I can improve that. So then I go back and I work on it. But when I try to tell people, I always try to go and I try to do it the best way possible. I tell them the positive side. I say, look, I think you're good at this, and this, but I think you really need to improve on these. Well, as soon as you go to if you don't just go, man, that was dope, then they're like, they just are pissed or disappointed, sad, and heartbroken. And you're like, dude, I'm just trying to give you, I want you to be better. Don't you? Like if I had shit on my face and you let me be at the party, I'm not going to be happy, mad at you if you say, hey man, you got something on your face. I'm going to be pissed if you don't tell me anything. Because I'm going to walk around a party with shit on my face. If you rap shitty or you're not singing well or you're hitting a certain note a certain way, I would want to know. Be like, hey man, yeah, that performance was great, but man, this one part you kind of, and I'll be like, oh, good to know. You know what I mean? And you're right. We do have to have that mentality more though, to be able to take those criticisms.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what brought us together today, because I think that this is very special because it's the weekend. It's Super Bowl weekend.
Yes, sir.
We've got the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. We've got a lot of names. Tom Brady is respected, called by many the GOAT.
Yeah. And that's why I'm wearing the Raiders, because like, you know, he fucked my team over. And hey, is it all right if I cuss? I don't know if that's bad
this
or
is
not.
the internet. You say whatever you
okay. Because I went on a couple people's and they're like, hey man, can you tell them the cussing? I'm like, oh, my fucking bad.
We're yeah, dude. We're say whatever you. This is. Remember what I said about athletes like taking and like,
yeah.
Say whatever the fuck you want to say, dude. This is America. Bless
you. For sure. Yeah, that's the same how my podcast is. I just be like, isn't that what the whole point of a podcast? We made, but some people do have rules, and I guess, and I understand some of them because they have fans, and some of their fans don't prefer without profanity, and I get it in some senses. But I was like, man, but cussing is just part of the the lingo.
Well, okay, so there are different things like they can be restreaming, they can be podcasts that are doing something with their local terrestrial radio station. They could have whatever their marketing is. Maybe they have to go back. Maybe they edit that stuff out because they don't want to say, you know, maybe they do have more kids listening. And I assume that there are kids out there that listen to me. But at the same time, when I was 17, 18, when I was 12, man, I was listening to Body Count, dude. Like, yeah, there's really not a lot that I think you can play for a kid that's listened to NBA Youngboy that would be terribly shocked by anything I might say.
Yeah, I always tell them that too. They could go on Pornhub, man. Like you think that's bad? They're listening to this. They're what? You should see their other browser history.
I mean, more than anything, if the cursing, if like saying the fuck or the shit is what is getting you to that thought, like that idea that you're really trying to reach to, then all we're doing, right, is we're just navigating a road to get to a destination. And from that destination, all we're doing is going someplace else. If we make getting upset about one or two words, right, that everyone gets to share with everybody, right? These are words. We don't have ownership of them. You don't own them. I don't own them. Why am I going to get upset because and get prohibitive that on the intraweb that I'm not paying bills on, you know, that everyone is sharing equally? You say whatever you want, man. That's the beautiful thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would just ask, you know, because this is your domain, so always got to be a little bit respectful. But you said about the Super Bowl, right? You said
yeah, let's talk about the Super Bowl.
Do you got a predictions or anything? Who do you you a football guy at first, or are you just kind of?
See, no, and the big part of that is because at this point, the rules in football have been so chopped up and bureaucratized that it exists to sell advertising. If your average 30-second clip on the during the Super Bowl is $1 million, let's say it's $1 million, right? And it's probably way more than that, I'm sure, right? Because there are a lot of people with $1 million. If Logan Paul wants to spend $1 million to make fun of Floyd Mayweather for 30 seconds during the Super Bowl, that's a question to make at this point. Should he do it? Absolutely. Why not? You only get one ticket. Let's see what happens. But what I'm saying is those rules exist so that you can take commercial breaks so that they can sell you that advertising. That's why you're going to see crazy shit. You're going to see crazy flags on the play. You're going to see crazy shit called because they're going to need to take that 30-second or 1 minute break to review some video because we got bills to pay, because they haven't been able to put anyone in the stands like they're used to for over a year now. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got to recoup your losses. If you're watching the Super Bowl, plan on spending a lot of time in front of the TV, have some good snacks because you're going to be there for a while. But even when it's not, it's 4 hours of sitting for 8 minutes of action. You know, and for me, like there are better ways to spend my weeknights or my Sunday afternoons.
I would agree. Usually wouldn't agree with you, like, but this season I didn't really pay attention. I'm big on college ball and NFL. I'm a Raider fan and I'm Michigan and I follow UCLA and stuff like that. But man, I tried to watch a couple games this year, and when there was nobody in the stands, like I was like, this. Like to me, the crowd is the other part of the game, and like being in the stands, like so, like someone broke down to me, they're like, how can you like break down conspiracies and talk about propaganda and talk about all this stuff and still watch sports? And I go, well, to me, it's different. Like I go, it's the camaraderie that I have with like friends and family going over and hey, let's go meet up. We're gonna go, and I look at it like that. And this year actually made me really embrace that a lot more. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't going to the bar and going just getting super faded and like watching the game and having fun. I was more spending time with family, and I wasn't even paying attention to the games as much because you're right, they were way more. They were so lackadaisical and just flags and so many ads. Like you said, the games were just so sluggish. It was boring. It was not fun to watch.
I'm with you on that. I tried. My in-laws were up at the end of the summer. It was weird. There are a couple of things that are really fucking me up. See, I'm an MMA guy, right? I love mixed martial arts, and so I love the lack of a crowd there. I think that's great. If I were to be a fan of basketball in the modern age or the NFL in the modern age, I want to know what these dudes are saying to each other on the court. You're piping in a fake crowd. I don't give a fuck. All right. I do
Yeah.
not care. Wasn't Draymond Green? Who was it that smashed LeBron's mom?
Oh, Delonte
Delonte
West.
West. Yeah. So how many times in a game? Because if there's a dude who's learning Japanese so that he can properly talk shit to Kobe Bryant on a court, then you know for a fact people are saying mad shit about LeBron's mom and Delonte West. That's the shit I want to hear. I want to hear that next level of talking shit. If I can hear, if Max Holloway in the middle of a fight can hear the announcer say Max Holloway might be the best boxer in MMA, and Max Holloway can punch a grown man in the face while he's having a conversation with the announcing booth. Fuck the crowd and fuck the fake noises. Give me what I want, or I'm not going to tune in because I have so many more options.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's making it more interactive with the fans. When you when there's fans there, it seems more interactive. It feels more interactive. And like you said, if you can have fans, don't pump the fake noise. Focus on the field. But the reason is that they're worried about their branding. They're an old company, and like UFC, for instance, Dana White has a different theory, and he came up at a different time, and he's like, man, my guys are gonna do what they're gonna do. Like, does he have his little like, hey, you got to stay in these parameters? Yes, but not, lets them a lot be more loose than the NFL. The NFL doesn't let their players be loose at all. They're like on strict regimens. A lot of them can't have motorcycles or own certain type of cars because they're worried about them getting into accidents or getting hurt. So there's a lot into it, and there's a lot of bullshit too that they got to deal with. And sometimes that pisses me off too. Like knowing that players get fined for like if their socks are down or something like that, their jerseys are messed up, like just for having that messed up, you get fined for that. But what's even worse is that this was a couple years ago. What was his name? I can't remember his name, but he played for the Steelers. D'Angelo Williams, right? So you know how in October they had the whole breast cancer awareness month. His mom died from breast cancer, so after that month, he was like, I'm still going to wear these cleats. Like, it means something to him. He was getting fined every game that he wore those cleats. That's crazy. That's insanity. I'm like, what the heck? like, I can't even fathom how you could think that that's okay. And but then once they got backlash, that's when they introduced, I think the next year or the year after that, the players could wear whatever kind of cleats they want to push whatever organization they want. They do it like once a year, twice a year now. Like then people, the players have the like custom cleats. So it's just, when you do see the bureaucracy behind stuff, sometimes it kind of it can ruin it for you, for sure. And I think that's why a lot of the UFC fans like it, because it's kind of straightforward. It is what it is. You know, if the guy's a piece of shit, he's a piece of shit, but he's a good fighter, he's a good fighter. You know what I mean? If he's a good guy, he's a good guy. It really doesn't matter. It all matters in the ring. What you versus you know what I mean? That's the beauty of to me, mixed martial arts, is that it's just me and you, man. Nobody's gonna save you. Like obviously the referee, but you know what I mean? For the most part, it's just me and you. And everything I got. It's not like boxing where you have strategy. You have strategy in UFC too, but in boxing, you know, you're dancing around, you're trying to get points. In UFC, you're trying to win, man. Yeah. You're trying to dominate the round.
And the other thing with the I like to call them the baby billionaires, right? These conglomerates, these groups of men, generally speaking, that own these NFL teams, right? They are the presidents, they are the owners of this little micronation, and their little soldiers are going to war against this other army that is owned by this other baby billionaire who hires these generals, right? The baby billionaires don't give a fuck, right? Like, generally speaking, about the players. The players are there to do nothing but generate income for them. Everything is built on the backs of the players and the coaches. And going back to like the piping in of the audience, you could pipe in the coaches. The corners, generally speaking, are more entertaining than whatever's being said in the ring anyway. And if you have fans who are, you know, watching on a delay anyway, it's not like, you know, the other team is getting any inside access. But like those, I think that those sorts of things, like taking advantage of the lack of an audience and taking advantage of the fact that fewer people are watching, makes it a beautiful thing.
And for missing a moment that, like, where people want to be more intimate with whatever, like, you know what I mean? They want, that's why, like, if you're a movie star or a rapper, singer, whatever, you can't just be that. You have to have a podcast. You have to have a blog. You have to be more, they have to know more about you. So you're right. That would be perfect. Hear the coach say some plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hear them yelling at the players. Hear the aggressiveness. Like, that would be cool. Or even like the cool conversations that you say where someone's like, last week, fuck, you know what I mean? Or did you catch this episode of blah blah blah? Like,
yeah, the shit talking on the field is part of what makes it. That's why guys that played the game in high school and college still watch the game now, because they know what it's like on the field. But if from a fan's perspective, right, it allows you to be a better fan. And now you want people who are stuck at home, who can't leave their house, to remember the good times when they could go back out with their friends. But you got to listen to the man. You can't get together with your friends because otherwise grandma dies. But eventually, grandma's going to die. And it may not be from a cough. It might be the fact that she's a heavy smoker, and she's been eating gummy bears for breakfast every day since she was a little girl.
Quite possibly.
But you can't go outside, and you can't go and watch a game with your friends. But we want you to remember what it was like when you could leave the house. Don't be sad. You can't go anywhere.
It really makes, that's what I was telling people, that last year really, I think, like, for me personally, like I've always like dabbled in conspiracies and cover-ups and you know, government things, as well as music, and just looking into everything. But I wasn't on it for a while because I was like, man, people don't care, right? People just don't care. But after like last March, last February, a year ago, people were kind of being a little bit more open to it. And that's kind of like why I started the podcast, because I started it like last May. And I just think that people are like looking for more information, but the information so like marketed, like you're saying, you know what I mean? Everything's marketed. Like whether you're getting your news, your sports, whatever, it's all this marketing scheme. So it's like it sucks when you look at it sometimes, because if you look at it as the schematics of it, it's all about pushing something to you, for you to buy something, because we're a consumer economy. So they're like, hey, come on, guys, like you said. And not just that, we're also gonna not let you. We're gonna restrict you from doing things, but it's okay that we do this.
Oh, yeah.
You can have 10 people at your house or 5 people at your house, but not only can we have 53 players on each sideline, not to mention plus about 10 to 15 coaches, not to mention plus about 10 probably to 15 doctors and trainers and like massage people, maybe more, plus the officials, plus so that's you're looking with their families over there, you're looking at a good what 3, 4, 500 people, and they're in these states where they're saying everything's locked down. It's kind of a slap in the face. It's just this elitist attitude came. I dance around that, but what I was trying, my point was like, this elitist attitude has been shown and revealed now in our country, and I think that's the big problem that is not to be addressed, and it's been for a long time. There's been a clash for a while, and now it's turning into a war.
And I think that that's where a lot of people are really kind of, they're fucking it up, right? Martin Luther King wasn't assassinated because he was speaking up for Black folks, for the indigenous people, for people of color. He was assassinated when he started making the broader picture of poor people as a whole. Okay, because when you start talking about, well, everyone really is getting fucked, and there are elitists of all nationalities, of all races, of all ethnic groups, and they're almost their sole occupation is to shit on the poor. And it happens in India, it's happened in the Middle East, it happens clearly in the United States, it happens everywhere you go. So how do we get people out of getting out of that position of that mental that mentally being broken, right? I don't want to say you've turned victimhood into a commodity, but you've turned victimhood into I don't want to say a badge of honor, but we're in a
I believe they weaponize it. It kind of weaponizes it where it's used as a tool to get your point across and push a certain agenda when need be. You can use that as a fallback. And you're exactly right, because the same thing happened to Fred Hampton, the leader of the Black Panthers. He was just not assassinated for being the leader of the Black Panthers because they knew he was that for a long time, and they could have done that a long time ago. But when he started talking to other organizations and be like, hey, guess what, man? It looks like we're in the same situation. I know you don't like me and I don't like you, but we have the same goal. So that communication is, once they see that unity, that's when it's like, okay, we need to break things up. And that's why we need to cause chaos. And that's when, I'm not saying there's not racist people. I'm not saying there's not people that will, capitalize on those moments, for sure. But they're exaggerated, in fact, so that it can look a certain way, when the reality is that people need to know that as a group, there's an elite class and the rest of us. And we're fighting to pretend like, oh, I got this better car. Like you said, I got the BMW. I went to the steakhouse. I got the girl and I got the boner pill. You know what I mean? I'm good to go. But
I got the better debt.
Yeah, it's just this competition. There is no competition. It's this feast or famine. I've been talking about this a lot lately. I think that's this feast or famine mentality, that where we're just like, oh, you know what, man? There's not enough food. There's not enough land. There's not enough water. There's enough everything. And actually, if we work together, we would accomplish a lot more. And the reason we're fighting is stupid and insignificant, because we're fighting over things that are irrelevant. About religion. Okay, well, do you know? Nobody knows the actual full truth of any religion. So we should just respect whatever anybody believes, because nobody actually knows. You could say, oh, I read from the Bible, this and that. No. Okay. Well, you know what you read. Maybe I always say, like, how can you say Christianity or this is right if what's the right one? Because if I was born Muslim, right, and my grandpa's Muslim, my grandmother's Muslim, everybody in my family, everybody I looked up to is Muslim, and then someone's gonna be like, wrong religion, bud, and like I'm getting to heaven, I'm like, damn, man, what? Like, why would that would be a sick game for God to play. I think that we as humans have divided each other, and it's a lot been played by the elitist class, using race, using identity politics and religion and such so forth to divide people.
So what are your thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because this is a conversation that I've been interested in having. Are you familiar with her?
A little, and I started looking a little bit more once I seen her trending on Twitter, and I was like, I don't to to just start off, I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but what I think was done to her was completely wrong.
So for those of you listening or viewing, if you're not familiar with Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you're one of our listeners, the cool thing about listening or checking the where this plays out, like if you're in Russia right now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a member of what I would call our parliament. And she, in a previous occupation before she was an elected representative, her job, like mine, is to occasionally talk about crazy shit they see on the internet. And if your job is to report on crazy shit that you see on the internet, you're going to come across crazy shit on the internet. Whether or not you believe the crazy shit on the internet, your job is to be entertaining and keep people's attention. The same way that if you are an artist, if you are a rapper, perfect example in 2020 was a rapper by the name of Flea Lord. The dude dropped an album a month the entire year, dropped records with Pete Rock, with Buck Wild, with everybody. He was consistently putting out new music. If your job is to generate interest based on the internet, you have to consistently put out new material. And sometimes that new material involves repeating crazy shit. The lady that did the pandemic documentary once agreed on video that there is a likelihood that Q is JFK Jr. And if you go down that rabbit hole, that means that his death was faked 22 years ago, and that he has secretly been hiding, lying in wait to be exposed as Q. Doesn't necessarily mean that she believed it, but that is an idea that other people who've put far more research into that than I have. If someone talks to me about Jesus or Muhammad, or they talk to me about their religious beliefs, I have to assume that they know what they're talking about because I don't. So if you're Marjorie Taylor Greene and your job and you've decided that your job, because these are jobs that we chose, right? These are occupations. That's why I'm not running for public office, because
I'm thinking about it.
and I've thought about it, and I have thought about it. It's crossed my mind. It's been asked, would you consider doing this? And I've put real thought into it. I have more fun saying crazy shit on the internet, talking to fine folks in Michigan about their ideas and how these things are affecting us, because you and I can do more through your community, through my community, not being elected officials, just interacting and being parts of our community. All right. I have a very good friend who I met through the radio, and before he got involved in radio, he was just active in the community. And so he was able to show me around and point out, no, this was when this guy was the mayor, he used to travel around with a photographer. So when you see him doing good stuff, he's not doing good stuff to do good stuff. He's doing it for the photo op. He's doing it to be an Instagram influencer, but he's trying to do it for old people who don't use Instagram. All right. And that's all they're doing. They're the chicks holding up signs at a BLM demonstration. You don't give a fuck. You don't care. You don't give a fuck. You're there for the photo. All right. You took your photo and then you went to lunch at PF Chang's or wherever the fucking nice chain restaurant you went to afterwards. You didn't support anyone in a real meaningful struggle. You took a picture for likes.
For sure. And even some of those people you saw videos of people going after, like riots and stuff and cleaning up, like they would want to run out there, fucking clean up and run back in their car. Like, you know what I mean? They look like they were doing something. It's like, you're right. Like these people are just trying to, because we've gotten to that, like that idolization has turned over so bad now that people want it. It's a drug. So even sometimes I can find myself I'm why am I looking how many things people have watched this? I shouldn't even care. Shouldn't even matter. But it does get to me every now and then, like, how many, what does this one get? And then you kind of got to go back and be like, oh, well, what does it even matter? Right. Because that's not the point of why I wanted to do a podcast. So you got to bring yourself back. And I think that a lot of these people aren't surrounded by good people, so they drag them down. As far as Marjorie, I think that her thoughts from, especially that post, for instance, a lot of people brought up that post. I kept hearing people talk about space lasers, and I thought this was hilarious because I talked to a bunch of people on Twitter, a bunch of people also on Twitter that I'll call out because they talk a lot of shit on Twitter. I'll tell you this, but when I tell them, I go, let's do live, man. Jump on my Instagram live. I'll throw you on my podcast or my RSS feed. Say what you say and let it be heard for the internet forever. You know what I mean? Where forever. Oh, you don't want it forever because you don't not sure about it. Okay. But they're saying space lasers, and I'm like it's some this crazy lady. I said the Pentagon in September made a public statement that said that Russia and China have weaponized their satellites with direct energy weapons, which are lasers. So in turn are space lasers, which she didn't say either. She didn't say space lasers. She's talked about direct energy weapons in the fires. And she was also talking about, and in that post, she was kind of like, that's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that this company is linked with Rothschild. She was trying to make some connections, which could be, but she didn't make any accusations. She was questioning and kind of like making things suspicious. And it kind of just irritates me that these politicians now are pushing to be like, don't question anything. And now you got people like AOC, who's on her Twitter, sending emails to all her fans, telling them to report people that are in numbers, in droves, report all these people that are going against me saying that that I didn't die at the Capitol. She's trying to say she died at the Capitol, and I'm like, you didn't die. We see you.
AOC is an interesting lady, but more than anything, like with all of that, going to the Marjorie Taylor, like when did it become a thing that parents or kids were reporting their parents, right, for being at the Capitol? Like clearly you don't want to go to Christmas next year. Like your like. You have people need to spend more time with their kids.
But that's for likes too, though, man. That's also for likes and recognition.
How many people do you think went to participate in riots and were like live streaming their shit? Like, hey, I'm setting a fucking cop car on fire, yay! Or hey, I'm breaking into.
I seen tons of them, man.
Dudes were shooting videos.
I was watching all those
with the cops, which is also kind of terrifying. But you're in that position. But at the same time, like if you're a cop and there's like 70 of them around you and you've got 30 rounds, like you can't start blasting. Like, yeah, that image doesn't look good. A cop just unloading on civilians. But I will say, I was in prior Air Force and I was security forces in the Air Force. The woman that was shot by security at the Capitol, she was also prior Air Force security forces. She was law enforcement. She was a cop. She did that for 12 years, which means every year, at least once, she did what's called a use of force training, which is they go through when you can shoot, under what circumstances you can kill a civilian, and they go from green to red. And so she would have done that every year for 12 years. Don't feel bad for her. However, laugh out loud for the lady who was walking around with a Gadsden flag and then got trampled, because that's funny.
Well, that's a unique perspective. I mean, I guess, that's why I say life is perspective, because obviously I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that would be something that is embedded into your brain. But to me, I question it like this. It's just kind of weird because it's like, what? So would you say that the guy was justified then? Me not knowing maybe the training, would he have been following his training of what is that what you're saying? Because I'm not sure.
100%. She is trying to gain access to a protection level resource. That protection level resource is going to be your legislature, right? Honestly, there are some questions that need to be asked. Why wasn't the National Guard there to begin with? You have hundreds of thousands of people showing up for a party and they're all angry. All right. And you knew
about it for over a month.
Yes. Yeah. You had time to prepare for this. All right. I'm sure they got a permit. All right. The president was showing up. Like you knew this was a thing that was occurring. So why was
the Secret Service just doesn't let the president just walk around wherever the hell he pleases?
Yeah. But you knew there were going to be hundreds of thousands of people there. You knew that Congress was going to be there. you didn't take any steps to protect them beyond what clearly didn't work. But yeah, there were
Because
a
in
lot of
2007, because this is one thing I brought up before too. Sorry to cut you off. In 2007, when a bunch of like veterans were protesting the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan because they were tired of them, they felt they were useless wars. Guess what? They had a presence there. They had everything was cut off. They had cops. They had National Guard. Why then? Why at these other protests do they have them? And the one time when you know that people are angry, people are stupid, like I keep telling people, you know, people, not only was there probably antagonizers, but then you also got to consider there was drunk people. Don't fucking lie to yourself. It's like going to, it was probably like going to a tailgate. You know what I mean? Everybody was probably in there fucking cooking, fucking Trump, motherfucker. And then fucking giving you a burger. Here, you want a beer? What? Yeah, man. Shots, baby. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit was definitely happening.
Absolutely. You are going to a tailgate knowing your team lost. All right. You're getting fucked up.
Oh, yeah. You lost the Super Bowl. And you were supposed to win big time.
Yeah, it's crazy. So here's where it gets really, really interesting, right? So we talk about the Super Bowl. Let's talk about the inauguration.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of the names that were involved in the inauguration celebration. Tom Hanks. That dude's not even an American citizen anymore. And we're talking about the events of the last year and conspiracy theories gone wild, right? If you are trying to convince people that you are not the leader of the dark cabal of evil, all right, why would you get the lady that did the child sacrifice seance at the Super Bowl last year? Why would you get Lady Gaga and her ties to Marina Abramovich? Why? I mean, like,
yeah.
If you're into the dark conspiracy shit, right? And this is what got around April, like I kind of pulled back a lot on the conspiracy stuff because it was just too fucking much, right? And this is why. You start looking at every name that was involved with this inauguration celebration for Joe Biden. If you get into the dark stuff, you're lapping this up like a fucking dog with a cold bowl of water on a hot day. Like you're diving in and you're sucking all of this down because everyone's been attached to dark shit for the last 5 years. If you've gone down any of the dark, like Alex Jones with the volume
for sure, yeah,
rabbit holes, these are the darkest of the dark. Bill Gates, who, by the way, is not a medical professional, he could not protect Microsoft Office from viruses. That's the guy. That's the guy leading the charge to inject shit in you. Okay. And the last thing that they're saying is take care of yourself. The last thing that they're saying is get out of the house, interact with people, get sweaty, work out, shock your immune system, have a good time and live your life. What they're saying is live in fear, get some shots. It'll make everything okay. In the meantime, don't leave the house. We're gonna make it so everything is delivered to your big stupid pie hole. Whether it's your clothes, whether it's your food, whether it's whatever your groceries, your Home Depot shit will be delivered to you. You don't have to leave your house. Don't interact with anyone because they'll kill you. Because they'll all kill grandma.
Unless it's online. And you can interact online, but we have to see who you're talking to and what are you talking about. And maybe we might have to put some disclaimers. And if we have to put a lot of disclaimers, maybe we might have to suspend you. And if we have to suspend you a lot, maybe we might have to just delete you. You know, but it's free speech for all though. But my argument about Bill Gates is the same as kind of what you're saying. It's like, okay, you know what's going around right now, whether true or not, right? Whether it's like I always look at everything like I'm kind of 50-50 on everything because I'm like, I could see the possibility of that. And I think there's nothing wrong in speculating on possibilities. Now, am I saying it's factual? I mean, like in some senses, you could see some factual evidence of things that are actually happening. Now, do I know if that's a total agenda that's actually being embarked by a bunch of people? I don't know, but I do know that rich people do try to fuck over other people just to stay rich. So that's not a like conspiracy, that's actual fact. And I think that like we get stuck in these rabbit holes and all this shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, man, I lost my thought, man.
That's okay. I do want to. This has been fucking with me.
No, that's what I was gonna say. But my bad. Why does it? If Bill Gates knows this about all this conspiracy stuff, Why doesn't he just step out of the limelight? You choose to go on CNN. You choose to go on MSNBC. You could just shut the fuck up and make your money. You choose to go, it's your ego, maybe. I don't know. But like, I'm like, because you could just vanish and say nothing. People would forget about you because you're not that relevant. But you can do what you want to do. But for some reason, he has this, like, I don't know, like I said, if it's ego or what, but he's got to be like, I got to be on TV. Well, make somebody else be the spokesperson. Maybe that you could change the image. You think you would be smarter. That's the thing I argue. Like, if you're trying to take over the world, you're doing a shitty job at it, because marketing should be the key. Like, in some senses, they are great at marketing when they do with identity politics. But like, you can see, like, hey, Bill Gates, people don't like him. Let's switch it. They're finally getting the message of Fauci, and they are switching Fauci. You could see there's this new guy, I forgot his name, but you can see he's going to be taking the media role for Fauci pretty soon. And that's what they got to do. It's like, come on, man, simple strategy, man. Like, even if like I obviously, like, I don't like it as a citizen, but you would think that these people would be smart. If you're going to manipulate us, at least do it the right way.
I think that one of the things that, by the way, I'm opening and closing the window, but this is Alaska, so it's like 20 degrees, so it gets real cold real quick.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm with you right now. I'm at 19 today. I think, oh no, we got to 23, I think, today. Like, the other day we had a little ice storm and stuff. We're not as bad as you, but every now, because we're in Metro Detroit, but like, if we go up north in the Upper Peninsula, they get like weather like you guys get.
So can you talk a little bit about your podcast and what made you make you're still making music. Let's talk a little, let's start with your music. All right. What motivates you to write, and then how do the two things come together? How do they coincide, the podcast and the music?
They kind of accidentally came together because, like, I wasn't really doing anything. I was kind of like not paying attention, getting into relationships, working, taking care of my kid, like doing that kind of stuff, and just kind of living life. And I would still, like, as far as music wise, I would still write a few things, maybe record here and there, but I wasn't really pushing anything in particular. Like, I guess I was probably deflated. You get deflated. It's such a task, and especially when you had opportunities that you did squander. You know what I mean? You're like, I had opportunities, but I mess it up. Like, so it gets demoralizing, So I was kind of like in a little rut. And then, like I said, I don't know, like, I got out of my relationship, and then like I started going out, and then this like whole coronavirus thing hit, and I was like, well, can't even go out. And then like I started watching the news, and I started seeing, like, and at that time, like, I hadn't been talking about conspiracies. Like, I still believed what I believed. Like, I say conspiracies, but like I'm more into the, like, talking about like the central intelligence and like a lot of the things that are real true that can be proven. They're not like, I don't talk a lot about space aliens and stuff like that. So it coincides. So after the COVID stuff, like, me and my buddy were talking all the time. And after my breakup with my last girlfriend in 2019, I started listening to podcasts. I really never paid attention to podcasts. And typical, I jumped on Joe Rogan. Of course, you're going to listen to Joe. He's like the gatekeeper of one of the gatekeepers, So I listened to him, and he kind of spiraled me off on a couple other ones. And then I got a couple other ones. And then I got onto this podcast called No Agenda. And No Agenda just fucking, I don't know, man. They just kind of, and just hearing Joe Rogan always saying anybody can make a podcast, anybody can make a podcast. And then listening to No Agenda, it kind of put it together like, yeah, I could, okay. That kind of lines up with what you know what I mean? Like, what I would want to do. And I just started trying to talk about, like, and deciphering and kind of breaking down the propaganda of the news and how it's kind of choreographed, and that the left, the right, it's all just this theater. And I think people need to realize that, like, and I even tell people that are on the far conspiracies, well, I say, I don't care what you believe. You might be right. Like, a lot of people believe Michelle Obama's a man. I do personally, I do not. I do not believe that. I've seen a lot of proof. I've done my own research. I'm saying if it is, that's just me personally. And people do get upset. Like, that's why I think people are too invested and rooted in these things. They get very upset with me. And I go, look, man, they go, I thought you were a conspiracy guy. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like all I'm saying is that I speak my mind, and I see things that are conspiratorial, and some are not even conspiracies anymore because they've been proven to be true. But yeah, people get mad, or like lizard people, like, I'm entertained by all that. Like, I listen to flat earthers. Like, people get mad at me too, because I go, look, man, I understand. Like, I have nothing against anybody. I say that I always tell them too, and I don't understand why they get mad at me. I go, I get it. I see the possibility of you being right. You could be, because I really don't know. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I've never been in space. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But from the knowledge I know, I just say shadows, man. I go, man, explain the shadow. And I said, and I even break it down. I go, if here's an experiment you could do, and I don't know if it would work or what. Prove to me that, because they say the sun goes like this, right? I say, prove to me that if the sun going like this stretches a shadow that way or something, or if it's a curve, I mean, the experiments I've seen, they failed. I have nothing wrong with someone trying to figure it out, but like this whole, like, I'm right and that's it. I don't like that attitude. And that's not that's not what we're about over here. We're about learning and trying to figure out and having conversations with people, because I don't know anything really. I know what I know from my experience, but I don't know anything about anybody else's experience. I think it's about that. And then, like I said, breaking down this propaganda that is becoming heavy down, and people say it's Fox, and then people say it's CNN, and I'm like, it's all of them.
Which leads to my next question. Would you like to discuss Operation Mockingbird?
I would love to. And thank you, because some people, like, at first they were like, oh, so you're like, did this to Kill the Mockingbird, the book. And I was like, no, man, Operation Mockingbird. Yeah. And that's another one. Like, that's kind of what I base it off of, because like I said, there's everybody out there. There's the people that believe in UFOs. I'm not saying I do not believe in that. I'm just open to the possibilities. I just don't know. Same thing with religion. I don't know. I'll listen to you. I love hearing people's stories, though. Like, talk to me about your religion. Talk to me about what your beliefs are. That's cool. That's entertaining for me. And I learn more from it, and it gives me more knowledge of it. But as far as me, nah, man, like, I try to base it on as much fact as I can, because that's how am I going to prove to people that things are going on, saying, hey, man, there's lizard people. Come on, man, hear yourself talk. If you say that, you're going to turn people off right away. And I'm like, look, man, my basis is Operation Mockingbird. You have literally CIA agents, not only at first just implanting stories, shifting the way. That's how we got. And they not only just Operation Mockingbird is a lot talked about, like, the journalist wise, but it also leaned a lot into the movie industry. That's why you're seeing Disney at the time with a lot of Nazi propaganda, trying to push people into World War II. And that's actually what pushed us into this taxation theft policy that I disagree with, because I think that I don't understand. I have no problem helping each other. If we were actually paying taxes and it was actually helping my common man, I wouldn't mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would enjoy it. But where's my receipt? Give me a receipt then every year. I need to see my receipt and what actually happened and what was actually paid for, instead of this bureaucracy where you're making a bunch of meetings of people together and trying to solve nothing. Then you have this Operation Mockingbird, where you can just put information into the media and to make the people think you're right, or that lean them to your agenda, which these people that they believe, how many people since the 50s, 60s, 70s, they find their anchor, like, Walter Cronkite is the most notorious, that, like, people just, that's America's anchor, right? When he spoke, they believed him, and they felt he was genuine. They felt so. It's just so, like, mind-boggling and kind of disgusting to think that they use this image, and if you look at this replica, it's been done in all kinds of other industries, but that was the blueprint. You see Walter Cronkite, he's like, I'm here for you, man. Look, I was here when JFK got killed. I was here when the Vietnam War. But he's also feeding you this other propaganda story of why did we go to Vietnam? Vietnam was something we should never have been in. And it was actually the secret war at first. It was very hush-hush. But then I forgot what exactly happened. But there was some kind of, like, big conflict.
The Gulf of Tonkin?
Yeah. There you go.
So the Gulf of Tonkin, this is where it gets really interesting. Do you know whose dad was in charge of the Gulf of Tonkin? Come on.
That Bush?
No.
No. Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison's dad. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
I
knew there was one.
Morrison,
Yeah. Okay.
So you see people, and you start seeing, and you can get all into the books. It's called Weird World of the Canyon, Weird Tales of the Canyon. It's about Laurel Canyon in California and all the crazy shit, and how all the people whose kids are associated with three-letter agencies, artists themselves who are attached to three-letter agencies, and the influence that they had on the arts and music scene and everything that was going on, how it was all wrapped up in all of whatever you consider the dark stuff. It's the dark stuff. Anyway,
I
so
dabbled a little bit in that. I dabbled a little bit into that too, like where like that's how I remember that. I knew it was one of them because there was a couple other big artists that like their family members were either involved in the MK Ultra or involved in high military ranking secret operatives. It's very telling, and that they were very prominent in the music industry and very influential. And I tell people all the time, like, don't you think that like people go, oh yeah, well, like in '92, Bush Senior supposedly because it was already went, and this is the crazy thing. People don't believe Operation Mockingbird and they think it's conspiracy. I'm like, dude, it was talked about in Congress, man. This was debated on. They had to, CIA was getting grilled. This is on the CIA website. You know what I mean? This is no knowledge, but they say in '92, supposedly Bush Senior says, we're not going to do it anymore. So because they say they're not going to do it, we're like, oh, all right, guys, like, come on, man. They're just going to, and we fell asleep again, and people aren't watching the government. They're letting them get away with it because it's this whole utopia idea that people have, like a lot of, especially along the left, they have this like utopian idea. And I go, you do know, and even a lot of libertarians, they were like, okay, we'll beat the tyrant and it's over. I'm like, it's never over, man. Liberty and freedom will always be challenged by tyrants. Always, always. It's not gonna change, but you can keep an awareness and keep those tyrants very down. So it's very easy to defeat them. It doesn't even take violence. You know what I mean? It takes just education and speaking to people and building bridges, but we're too much at each other's throats for some reason.
Agreed. I agree, and I think a lot of it is manufactured by people who want us fighting amongst ourselves. If you can, get people to see that the people that are, the water walkers, the people that are telling us how we should be living and how these other folks are scumbags, are really doing some scumbag shit themselves on an individual level, should maybe reconsider how they receive their information and how they trust people. The two most recent examples being, like T.I. and Marilyn Manson. Like, come on, like we knew what T.I. and Tiny were about a long time ago. It's not like when they were popped in LA with like ecstasy and guns, like, they I don't know. I think that after a while, Tiny gets boring by herself. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think they do this, and they shake up this because it's very interesting that the people that come out with some of the things they have to say. Like, I thought it was very interesting during the Trump era because it's really funny to me because I always hated Trump, man. I just don't like him. Like not like how these liberals, like just on a different level. So I always tell people, like, when they argue with me because I'm against mass and stuff, like I have my own debates on that. They go, oh, yeah, you and your fucking leader Trump. And I'm like, man, fuck Trump. I always say, because I go, I don't give a fuck about that motherfucker. First of all, that motherfucker doesn't know who I am. So I don't give a fuck about him. Second, I've been talking shit about him since 1997. You just started talking shit about him because you thought it was trendy. So get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Like, they always try to come at me like that shit. That shit pisses me off. And it's funny because me telling that to a Trump supporter, I actually get, they don't even get mad at me for that. Because I tell them, look, man, I get it. I don't bash him all the time because I see what's the point when everybody's already doing it. Why am I going to lay on something, especially when there's stuff that you can see is obvious lies and obvious way to stir the pot and put us into this direction and put everybody into this, oh, he's a Trump guy. Dude, man, fuck Trump. I tell him all the time, like, I hate all of them equally.
So I live in a state that went 65% Trump, like overwhelming red state. So like, while to hear someone say like, "Oh, fuck Trump," it's like, it's funny to me. Like, it makes me smile. Like, I voted for Joe Jorgensen. My team always loses.
Oh, me too. Yeah, me
too. like I've gotten used to it. Like, I voted for Gary Johnson. I voted for Gary Johnson because he faked a heart attack on stage. And for those, so we've talked about previously on the podcast. Gary Johnson was on stage with a woman who said that your chance of a heart attack goes up some ridiculous number within 30 minutes of smoking cannabis. And on stage in front of an audience, a man running for president grabbed his chest and fell out of a chair, which means there's a really good chance that in the last 30 minutes, he smoked pot. However, it was that pre-2015 super duper doja, like whatever cultivators learned in mass since 2015, 2016, can't be quantified.
Oh, you're saying like the weed sucks now?
No, I'm saying that, like, if you look at, I'm not saying the weed sucks at all. I'm saying he was before we got supersized weed, like when you could go to retail and like the top shit was like 18%. You're like, oh shit, this tested at 18%. And now you got shit that's like testing out at like 31% with like, I don't know, 2% terpenes or whatever, right? But it's like, oh shit, they've got like super weed. So he didn't have like GMO'd GMO.
Yeah.
He got
Yeah, but
he got
well,
like,
it's interesting because I thought you were saying that it was whack because me and my buddy were kind of talking about that. We're like, man, it just does seem like that. Now that it's kind of been more mainstream ties, it's just been like I go to a guy still, you know, but like when you go into the shops, like first of all, they destroy out here, they fucking destroy you, man. Like literally, like there's like one shop, like because this opened like right before the whole virus thing. And they only let like one shop get a license. And like 5 more were supposed to get it, but I don't know if they ever got it. Where you could go without having a prescription. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I went into the one and I was like, first of all, literally I waited like an hour and a half to get in this bitch and it was cold outside because like they allow the medical people to get priority. So you can just go in for the part. So I was like, whatever. Like I already knew kind of that was going to happen. I waited. I went, I got in. Dude, I got 2 8s of one purple, some purple shit, and some fucking one other kind of some like cushish shit. You know what I mean? Like not even that great. I'm a little bit of a spoiled motherfucker because I'm from Southern California, and like we have I was just everybody that was around me had a lot of good stuff. But anyways, it was good, decent. But so for that and 2 cartridges, I spent like $190, man. And of course I had to spend it because I was like, I'm already in line. Like, when am I gonna be like, oh, what?
I got to the front.
I just waited 2 hours.
I waited 2 hours to get into the restaurant, and by the time I got there, all I wanted was a salad. My hunger had departed. Why?
Yeah.
Like,
I couldn't believe it though. I was like, and when you looked at the receipt, it was all like tax. Like you're talking about like a fucking 40% tax or 30%. Like it was huge. It was that, and then like they had overinflated prices, and I was not impressed. Like it was cool, but it was nothing that I was like, oh yeah, I'd rather go to the guy that I go to that sometimes he doesn't have fire, but like, you know, at least it gets me through the time because and it's affordable for me, like where I could get some fire sometimes, and then sometimes you got some all right fire, but like it gets you through. Nothing like, you know, where you're like sometimes like where you're like, hey man, I'm gonna have to return this back. But he has options. He always has like flavors and shit. But it's just it does seem like people have been getting a little bit lazier on the game, or maybe they've been being broken up, because I do know a lot of places have been broken up. I've had a lot of friends that have been affected by that, where there's, you know, maybe they have like a certain operation that's not compliant to the city or whatever, and they break that shit up.
yeah, so we haven't really had, that I'm aware, had much of that problem in Alaska. We've had folks that have used like really fucked up pesticides, like Eagle 20. You've had major retail operations selling moldy weed labeled as something else. You've had little shit here and there, but the market here, which has been like retail existence since I believe 2017.
Yeah, you guys were up there.
Yeah, I mean, there was Oregon, there was like Washington, Oregon, and Colorado,
and
around.
Denver, yeah, Colorado, and then you guys, right?
Yeah, and then then we went legal in 2017 was like when it became legal. But you know, so retail has been around for a minute, and we've been able to get to a point where you can get fire like and the numbers are just numbers, right? Like anything else, they're inflated. I know that the bud that I'm getting that says it tested at 20%, I know that was a top cola. I'm informed enough as a consumer to know that
Yeah,
what
yeah,
got
yeah.
tested was the very best of the best. And I've heard rumor in the past that folks have dusted a little bit of keef on top of their top cola so that it tests a little bit higher, so there's more THC. I've heard rumors of such a thing. But generally speaking, you can get something that when it did tested out at 20 something percent. Now, especially if it's a vertically integrated place, a place that it grows and sells their own weed, you can get that easily for like $40. And you can get, if you're looking for just like blunt weed, you can find a good eighth for like $30. And it's
And it could have been possible too that I could have maybe got like a better deal if I knew that place, but like I felt kind of rushed, and then I was just like, "Fuck, man, that's so much okay." Like, like the first one discouraged me, and I was just like, and then plus me too, like I've never really been like one of these dispo guys because like I've always been like, man. I always say like it was always my joke, like, I mean, I'm supporting the small business, man,
yeah,
the local pharmacist, and I've always had guys, and I just find people, man. It just usually works out better, even if they go to the dispo. I just don't see the like. I know it's a lot of people that love being in there, and like I just go, I don't know, man. Like I just want my shit, chill. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's even better when someone like my new guy's perfect. Like literally, like most of the time, I call him, and he's like, it's in the garage, it's in a fucking paper bag. I just walk in the garage, turn my shit, get that shit. I'm
yeah,
out, man. And I love it because I'm just like, yeah, man, like nothing against no one, but like sometimes when you're getting off work, you're like, man, I'm just trying to pick up, go, like handle my shit.
yeah.
And then sometimes like people want to be talking. I'm not trying to make a whole day out of it. I'm trying to go in and out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
And
the
so,
cool thing about the dispensaries up here and where I live. I live in rural Alaska, right? So like the weed
okay.
the weed that you're getting in stores, like I know the growers, right? So that's who I'm like. I know who I'm buying from. They've been on the podcast. And the other cool thing about being up here is you have so many dudes who've just been, like growing in their garage for like 30 years, right? And it's like Bruce Lee with kicks, like I don't fear the man that's practiced, 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man that's practiced one kick 10,000, whatever it was that he said about kicks. Imagine that to weed. Equate that.
Yeah.
And this dude has been growing his weed for 30 years and it makes him happy. It's like getting steak from a butcher.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. That's kind of like, I think what kind of, hurts my image of out here because I'm so like that's why I say I'm spoiled. Like I knew like tons of growers, tons of people, like where you're getting like you said, you know what you're getting, you know what like exactly like how it was grown, like the and then now like I'm just like kind of going off of random people. So like obviously there's probably a good market out here that I don't know of. You know what I mean? I always thought that also is too just what I see, it sucks. Like it's I got a guy that's pretty good, but other than that, but also I was not going out all the time anymore either, trying to meet people. So
Yeah.
I'm not extending that network. And I have a couple times ran into a couple people out here though that have had some fire though too. But usually I will say that they do say it's from Cali. So